German radio chatter erupts across the frequency. "He's coming straight at us." The voice cracks with disbelief. A lone Grumman F6F Hellcat screams toward a formation of Focke-Wulf 190 fighters at a combined closure rate exceeding 600 miles per hour. The Germans expect the American to break off, to veer away, to follow doctrine. He does not. He holds course. His propeller spins, invisible. His wings shudder from speed. The distance collapses. 500 yards, 400, 300. Then the formation splits. Fighters peel away in opposite directions, their attack run shattered before a single shot is fired. The bomber stream behind the Hellcat continues untouched. What just happened will be debated in intelligence tents for weeks. Germany, winter 1944. The sky over the Reich is a graveyard measured in aluminum and blood. The 8th Air Force has committed itself to daylight precision bombing, a doctrine built on American optimism and the Norden. Bomb sights supposed accuracy. Waves of B-17 flying fortresses cross occupied Europe in tight formations, their mass firepower meant to protect them from fighter attack. In theory, they can defend themselves. In practice, they die. German fighters tear into the bomber streams with coordinated violence. Messerschmitt 109s and Focke-Wulf 190D models climb high, position themselves nose on, and hurtle toward formations at speeds that give gunners no time to react. The head-on pass has become the Luftwaffe's signature tactic. It is efficient, brutal, and psychologically devastating. By December, loss rates on some missions exceed 20%. Entire squadrons evaporate over the Ruhr Valley or Schweinfurt's ball-bearing plants. Crews fly their tours counting missions like prison sentences, knowing the mathematics are stacked against survival. The bombers need escorts, but the P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings can barely reach the German border before fuel limitations force them home. The bombers fly alone over the heart of enemy territory. The Luftwaffe waits. The sound is unreal. Right. 2,800 engines roar at cruise power. Gun turrets rattle on ball bearings. Radio chatter crackles with static and fear. Then comes the scream of diving fighters, the hammering staccato of 20mm cannon fire punching through aluminum skin, the wet thud of rounds hitting flesh, sometimes the terrible silence when an engine stops, a wing folds, and a bomber begins its long fall toward frozen earth below. This is the crucible, the mathematics of attrition. Every mission costs machines and men. Replacements arrive weekly, fresh-faced and undertrained. Some last 3 sorties, some last 1. Fighter doctrine is clear. Escorts maintain position outside the bomber formation. They patrol the flanks, the high cover, the approach vectors. They intercept threats at distance before enemy fighters reach the heavies. Close escort is considered passive, defensive, ineffective. No one flies inside the formation. The turbulence alone could kill you, but doctrine assumes parity. It assumes you have choices. Over Germany in late 1944, American fighter pilots rarely have that luxury. His name is Eldon Macksey. He does not look like a fighter pilot. Tall and lean with a narrow face and hands better suited to holding chalk than a control stick. Before the war, he taught physics at a high school in rural Vermont. He explained momentum and vectors to farm boys who cared more about baseball than Newton's laws. He wore the same tweed jacket every day. He ate lunch alone in his classroom, grading papers while other teachers gathered in the lounge. His students called him fair but distant. His colleagues called him competent but odd. He did not attend faculty gatherings. He did not small talk. He calculated. When war broke out in Europe, Macksey tried to enlist in the Navy. He wanted to work on fire control systems to apply his understanding of ballistics to naval gunnery. They rejected him. Poor eyesight, correctable with glasses, but standards were strict. He tried the Army. They needed pilots desperately, and the vision requirements were slightly more forgiving. He passed, barely. In early 1942, he entered flight training at a base in Georgia, where the heat made the runway shimmer like water. Instructors noted his technical aptitude. They also noted his hesitation. One evaluation described him as mechanically sound, but lacking killer instinct. Another flagged him for overanalysis during simulated combat stress. He graduated in the middle of his class, not exceptional, not a washout, simply adequate. He was assigned to fighters, then shipped to England in the spring of 1943. He flew P-47 Thunderbolts initially, heavy brutes with radial engines that could absorb punishment and keep flying. He completed his first 20 missions without incident, no kills, no losses. He followed orders, he maintained position, he did not take risks. His squadron mates respected him but did not understand him. He was reliable in the way a good wrench is reliable, useful, unremarkable. When the squadron transitioned to F6F Hellcats in mid-1944, Macksey adapted quickly. The Hellcat was a Navy fighter designed for carrier operations, but the 8th Air Force adopted a limited number for long-range escort duties. It was heavier than most Army fighters, stable, rugged, and equipped with 650 caliber machine guns. It did not turn as tightly as a Messerschmitt. It did not climb as fast as a Focke-Wulf, but it was tough. It could take damage and bring pilots home. Macksey approached the Hellcat the way he approached everything, methodically. He studied the pilot's manual until the pages were dog-eared. He memorized fuel consumption rates at different altitudes and power settings. He calculated combat radius down to the nautical mile. He ran performance charts in his head during briefings. While other pilots played cards or wrote letters, Macksey sat in the corner of the barracks with a notebook sketching diagrams. He drew arcs and vectors. He estimated closure rates. He noted attack angles from after-action reports. His bunkmate once asked what he was doing. Macksey said he was learning the geometry of survival. The bunkmate did not ask again. Fighter escort doctrine in 1944 is built on a single principle: maintain separation. Escorts fly outside the bomber formation at staggered altitudes. They patrol assigned sectors. High cover watches for fighters diving from above. Flanking escorts guard the beam approaches. Tail-end escorts protect the rear. The goal is to intercept threats before they reach firing range of the bombers. Engage early, engage far, keep the enemy away. P5. The doctrine is not arbitrary. It evolved through 2 years of brutal combat over Europe. Early in the war, escorts tried flying close to the bombers. They stayed tight, right on the wing. It was a disaster. Escorts burned fuel, matching the slower bomber speed. They had no energy advantage when fighters attacked. They became targets themselves. The Luftwaffe learned to ignore the escorts and go straight for the bombers, so the doctrine changed. Escorts moved out. They gained altitude. They used speed and position to intercept threats at distance. It worked better. Losses declined. The system became codified. Training programs taught it. Manuals detailed it. Squadron commanders enforced it. Pilots who deviated were reprimanded or grounded. The rules existed for a reason. They were written in blood. But by late 1944, the doctrine is failing again. German fighter tactics have evolved. Luftwaffe pilots no longer engage in prolonged dogfights. They cannot afford the fuel or the losses. Instead, they use high-speed slashing attacks. They climb to altitude, position themselves ahead of the bomber stream, and dive through the formation nose first. The attack lasts seconds. Cannon fire rakes a bomber from front to back. Then the German fighter is gone, diving away before escorts can react. The head-on pass exploits a fundamental weakness. American bombers have limited forward firepower. The nose turret carries twin 50 caliber machine guns, but the gunner has only seconds to track, lead, and fire. Most never get a shot off. the German fighter closes at over 500 miles per hour. By the time the gunner reacts, the enemy is already through the formation or the bomber is on fire. Escorts try to counter the tactic. They position themselves ahead of the bombers, hoping to intercept the diving Germans before they reach attack range. Sometimes it works, often it does not. The Germans are fast. They choose their moment. They strike from angles the escorts cannot cover. The mathematics are brutal. A single escort flight of 4 fighters must protect 30 foot. Bombers spread across a cubic mile of sky. The Germans attack with flights of 6 or 8. They coordinate, they feint, they exploit gaps. Bomber crews feel it first. The terror of watching enemy fighters position above, knowing the dive is coming, unable to evade. Formations tighten instinctively, but tight formations create their own problems. Wingtip to wingtip, there is no room to maneuver. Turbulence from propellers throws aircraft around. Collisions happen. Friendly fire happens. The formations become death traps dressed up as mutual protection. And still the Germans come. Macksey cannot stop thinking about closure rates. He lies awake in his bunk at night, listening to the wind rattle the Quonset hut walls, running equations in his head. Speed equals distance over time. Closure rate equals the sum of 2 velocities when objects move toward each other. A Focke-Wulf 190 diving at 400 miles per hour toward a bomber flying at 200 miles per hour creates a closure rate of 600 miles per hour, that is 10 miles per minute. 1,000 feet every 6 seconds. At that speed, human reaction time becomes the limiting factor. A gunner needs time to see the threat, identify it, traverse the turret, lead the target, and fire. Even the best gunners need 3 to 4 seconds. By then, the German fighter has closed half the distance. The window for effective fire is impossibly small. Macksey sketches the geometry in his notebook. He draws bombers as rectangles, fighters as arrows. He plots approach vectors from 12 different angles. He shades the zones where escorts typically patrol. Then he marks the gaps. There are always gaps. No matter how the escorts position themselves, there are angles the Germans can exploit. High and ahead is the most dangerous. An escort cannot cover that vector without flying in front of the bombers, and doctrine forbids it. The turbulence is too severe, the risk of collision too high. The bomber gunners might shoot you by mistake, so escorts stay outside, they stay high or wide. They react to threats rather than preempt them. Macksey sees the flaw. Reaction is always slower than action. By the time an escort responds to a diving German fighter, the attack is already committed. The German has all the energy, all the initiative. The escort chases. Sometimes the escort catches the German after the attack during the dive away. Sometimes. More often, the German escapes, and the bomber burns. Macksey begins timing everything. During missions, he notes when he first spots enemy fighters. He notes when they commit to their attack. He measures the interval. It averages 18 to 22 seconds from first sighting to weapon release. In those 22 seconds, the escort must identify the threat, maneuver into position, close the distance, and fire. It is almost never enough time. Physics is unforgiving. Distance and velocity dictate outcomes. But Macksey notices something else. German fighter pilots hesitate when faced with head-on threats. He sees it twice during escort missions in November. A Messerschmitt 109 sets up for a diving attack. A P-47 chasing a different target accidentally crosses the Messerschmitt's path. The German breaks off. He abandons the attack run. The bomber survives. The second time, a damaged Thunderbolt, trailing smoke, drifts into the approach vector of a Focke-Wulf. The German pulls up, refusing to press the attack. Why? Macksey thinks about it for days. The answer is obvious once he sees it. Collision risk. A fighter diving at 400 miles per hour cannot quickly maneuver. The pilot is committed to his flight path. If something appears in that path, something unexpected, the natural instinct is to avoid it. The German pilots are skilled, experienced, and aggressive. but they are also human. They value their lives. They will not deliberately collide with another aircraft, not for a single bomber. Macksey stares at his notebook. The idea forms slowly, uncomfortably. What if an escort deliberately positioned itself in the attack vector? Not to the side, not above, directly in the path, nose to nose. The German fighter would have two choices: collide or break off, and if he breaks off, the bomber survives. It is simple physics. It is also insane. Macksey waits 3 days before approaching Captain Virgil Enright. Enright is the flight leader, a veteran with 41 missions and 3 confirmed kills. He is calm under fire and respected by the squadron. If anyone will listen, it will be Enright. Macksey finds him in the operations tent, reviewing mission maps. He explains the idea carefully. He talks about closure rates, reaction times, and the psychological component of collision avoidance. He sketches the geometry on a piece of paper. Enright listens without interrupting. When Macksey finishes, Enright folds the paper and hands it back. He says it is the stupidest thing he has ever heard. Flying head-on toward an enemy fighter violates every principle of air combat. It surrenders energy advantage. It exposes the escort to maximum firepower. It risks mid-air collision. Worst of all, it abandons the other bombers. An escort cannot protect 30 aircraft by fixating on one threat. Enright tells Macksey to forget the idea and focus on following doctrine. Macksey nods. He does not argue. He walks back to his bunk and adds notes to his notebook. 2 days later, he tries again. This time with Lieutenant Roscoe Talmadge, his usual wingman. Talmadge is younger, less experienced, more open to unconventional thinking. Macksey explains the concept over dinner in the mess hall. Talmadge listens, chewing slowly. He asks if Macksey has lost his mind. He points out that flying toward an enemy fighter means absorbing fire from its guns. A Focke-Wulf carries 4 20mm cannons and 2 13mm machine guns, all forward firing. Head-on, those weapons have a clear dim shot. The Hellcat would be shredded. Macksey agrees that it is dangerous, but he argues the German pilot faces the same risk. The Hellcat has 6 50-caliber machine guns, also forward firing. The engagement becomes mutual. Both pilots risk destruction, but the bomber, previously defenseless, survives. Talmadge says the math does not matter if Macksey is dead. He finishes his meal and leaves. Macksey sits alone, pushing food around his tray. He knows they are right. The idea is reckless by every measurable standard, but he cannot shake the conviction that the current approach is failing. The loss rates prove it. He decides to bring it to Colonel Thaddeus Kern, the squadron commander. Kern is a by-the-book officer, strict but fair. He rose through the ranks by following procedures and expecting others to do the same. Macksey requests a meeting. Kern grants it, though he seems annoyed by the interruption. Macksey presents his analysis. He brings his notebook, shows the sketches, explains the physics. Kern listens for 2 minutes, then cuts him off. He tells Macksey that doctrine exists for a reason. It is built on years of combat experience. Thousands of pilots have contributed to its development. One lieutenant with a notebook does not overturn that collective wisdom. Kern says the idea is not just wrong, it is dangerous. If other pilots tried it, they would die. Kern orders Macksey to stop discussing the tactic. He is grounded for 3 days for wasting command time. Macksey salutes. He leaves the office. He does not stop thinking. December 14, 1944. Dawn arrives cold and gray over the airfield in Suffolk. Ground crews move in silence, their breath visible in the freezing air. They check fuel lines, patch bullet holes with aluminum tape, load ammunition belts into wing bays. Macksey walks the perimeter of his Hellcat, running his hand along the fuselage. The metal is cold enough to burn skin. Technical Sergeant Orville Pence, his crew. Chief watches from beside the wing. He asks if everything is all right. Macksey says the aircraft is sound. Pence nods but does not look convinced. He has seen pilots before missions. He knows the difference between routine nerves and something deeper. The mission brief is short. Escort a bomber formation targeting synthetic oil refineries near Leipzig. Deep penetration, maximum range, expected heavy resistance. Intelligence reports indicate at least 2 Luftwaffe fighter groups operating in the area, Jagdgeschwader 3 and Jagdgeschwader 26. Experienced units with kill tallies that make American pilots uncomfortable. Colonel Kern delivers the brief in his usual clipped tone. He emphasizes formation discipline, stay in assigned sectors, do not chase lone bandits, protect the bombers. Macksey listens and says nothing. His grounding ended yesterday. Kern has not spoken to him since. That is fine. Macksey does not need conversation. He needs altitude and an opportunity. They take off at 0730 hours, 16 Hellcats forming up in flights of 4. Macksey flies in the second element with Lieutenant Roscoe Talmadge on his wing. Captain Virgil Enright leads the flight. Major Chester Polk commands the overall escort group. They climb through cloud cover, breaking into clear sky at 12,000 feet. Below, the English countryside disappears beneath a blanket of white. The bombers are already airborne, 36 B-17s from the 301st Bomb Group. They form a tight box formation staggered in altitude. The Hellcats take position. High cover, flank cover, tail cover. Standard deployment. Macksey flies high and to the right of the formation. He scans the sky constantly. His neck aches from the turning. His eyes water from strain and cold. The cockpit smells of oil and rubber. The engine roars 6 feet ahead, a steady vibration that travels through the stick into his hands. They cross the channel at 13,000 feet. France appears below, scarred and brown. Towns reduced to rubble, roads empty. The war has hollowed out the landscape. Radio chatter is minimal. Pilots call out checkpoints. Navigation updates? No enemy contact yet. The tension builds with every mile deeper into occupied territory. By the time they cross into Germany, Macksey's hands are cramping on the stick. He flexes his fingers, shakes out the stiffness. Talmadge's voice crackles over the radio, checking in. Macksey acknowledges. They fly in silence. The bomber formation drones ahead, steady and vulnerable. 36 aluminum boxes filled with men who trust the escorts to keep them alive. Macksey thinks about the mathematics. 16 fighters, 36 bombers. The ratios are bad. They have always been bad. He watches the horizon, waiting. The call comes at 0912 hours. Bandits high. 11 o'clock. Multiple contacts. Macksey snaps his head left and up. He sees them immediately. 6 fighters, maybe 8, dark specks. Against the pale sky. They are climbing, positioning themselves ahead of the bomber stream. Focke-Wulf 190Ds, the long-nosed variants with the Jumo engines. Fast, heavily armed, deadly. Major Polk's voice cuts through the radio. High cover, engage! Captain Enright acknowledges and banks left, leading his flight toward the enemy. Macksey follows. Talmadge stays tight on his wing. The escort fighters climb, trading speed for altitude. The Focke-Wulfs continue their climb, not engaging yet. They are setting up, choosing their moment. Then they roll. One by one, the German fighters invert and dive. They come down steep and fast, aimed directly at the lead bombers. Their noses glow with muzzle flashes. Cannon fire streams toward the formation. The bombers hold course. They cannot evade. They can only absorb the attack and hope. Macksey watches the geometry unfold. He sees the attack angle. He calculates the intercept point. Enright is too far left. Talmadge is following Enright. The other escorts are scattered, chasing threats on different vectors. One Focke-Wulf breaks from the group. It dives alone, targeting a B-17 on the right edge of the formation. The bomber is isolated. No nearby escorts. The German pilot has a clean run. Macksey does not think. He rolls right and pushes the stick forward. The Hellcat's nose drops. Gravity and engine power combine. The aircraft accelerates. Talmadge's voice erupts over the radio. "Where are you going?" Macksey does not answer. He is watching the Focke-Wulf. measuring its descent rate, calculating the intercept. He adjusts his angle, steepening the dive. The airspeed indicator climbs, 200 knots, 250, 300. The controls stiffen, the wings shudder. Wind screams past the canopy. The Focke-Wulf grows larger in his windscreen. The German pilot has committed to the attack. He is focused on the bomber. He does not see Macksey, not yet. Macksey pulls out of the dive early, leveling off directly in the Focke-Wulf's path. He is nose to nose with a diving fighter. 500 yards separate them, then 400. The closure rate is staggering. Macksey's hands are steady on the stick. His finger rests on the trigger. The German pilot sees him. Macksey watches the Focke-Wulf's nose twitch. Uncertainty. The German is committed to a 400-mile-per-hour dive. He cannot quickly turn. He cannot stop. He has seconds to decide, collide or abort. Macksey holds course. 300 yards. 250. The German brakes. The Focke-Wulf snaps into a hard left roll, pulling out of the dive with violent G-force. Macksey does not follow. He rolls right and pulls up, rejoining the formation. Below, the B-17 flies untouched. Macksey lands at 1400 hours. The Hellcat's tires chirp on the runway. He taxis to the hardstand and shuts down the engine. Silence settles over the cockpit. His hands shake as he unbuckles the harness. Technical Sergeant Orville Pence climbs on too. The wing and opens the canopy. He asks if Macksey took any hits. Macksey shakes his head. No damage. Clean mission. Pence looks at him strangely but says nothing. Macksey climbs out, legs unsteady. The ground feels wrong after 4 hours in the air. He walks toward the operations tent, helmet under his arm. Other pilots are already there, gathered around the debriefing table. Colonel Kern stands at the head, arms crossed. His face is unreadable. The debriefing starts with Captain Enright's flight. Standard report. Contact at 0912. Engaged multiple bandits. 2 enemy aircraft damaged, no losses. Major Polk reports next. His flight intercepted a separate Gruppe. 1 confirmed kill. 1 probable. Then Kern asks about Macksey. The tent goes quiet. Talmadge speaks first. He says Macksey broke formation and dove alone toward an enemy fighter. No communication, no coordination. A violation of doctrine. Kern's jaw tightens. He asks Macksey to explain. Macksey describes the geometry, the isolated bomber, the Focke-Wulf's attack run, the decision to position himself in the threat vector. He does not mention his previous attempts to pitch the idea. He simply explains what he did and why it worked. The German pilot broke off. The bomber survived. Kern listens without interrupting. When Macksey finishes, the tent remains silent. Then Lieutenant Merritt Dalton speaks. He is a B-17 pilot, part of the escorted formation. He confirms Macksey's account. Dalton says he watched the entire engagement from his cockpit. The Focke-Wulf was lining up on his wingman's aircraft. No escort in position. Then a Hellcat appeared, head-on with the German. The enemy fighter broke off immediately. Dalton's wingman made it home without a scratch. He says Macksey saved that crew, 10 men who would otherwise be dead or captured. Kern asks Dalton if the maneuver seemed reckless. Dalton pauses. He says it seemed desperate, but it worked. And desperate measures are all they have left. Kern dismisses the debriefing. He orders Macksey to remain. The tent empties. Kern sits down across from Macksey. He does not speak for a long moment. Then he says Macksey disobeyed direct orders. He was told to stop discussing unorthodox tactics. Instead, he executed one in combat. Macksey agrees. He offers no defense. Kern asks what Macksey expected to happen. Macksey says he expected the German pilot to value his own survival over a single kill. Human nature. Physics. Predictable outcomes. Kern leans back. He says the maneuver could have killed Macksey. It could have caused a mid-air collision. It could have triggered a panic in the formation. Macksey nods. All true. But it did not. Kern stands and walks to the tent entrance. He stares out at the airfield. After a long silence, He tells Macksey he is not grounded, not yet. But if he tries it again, there will be consequences. December passes into January. Macksey flies 8 more missions. He does not attempt the head-on. Maneuver again. He follows doctrine. He stays in position. But other pilots start asking questions. Talmadge approaches him in the barracks one night. He asks Macksey to explain the timing. When do you commit? How do you judge the intercept angle? Macksey draws diagrams on a scrap of paper. He talks about closure rates and reaction windows. Talmadge listens, skeptical but curious. 2 days later, during a mission over Mannheim, Talmadge tries it. A Messerschmitt 109 dives toward the bomber formation. Talmadge rolls into the threat vector and flies directly at the German. The Messerschmitt breaks off. The bomber survives. Talmadge returns, shaking but alive. Word spreads quietly through the squadron. Pilots discuss it in low voices during meals. Some dismiss it as luck. Others see the logic. Captain Enright pulls Macksey aside after a briefing. He says he was wrong. The idea is not stupid. It is dangerous, yes. But the current approach is also dangerous, and it is failing. Enright asks Macksey to brief his flight. Informal, no official record. Just a conversation between pilots. Macksey agrees. That evening, 6 pilots gather in a corner of the barracks. Macksey explains the concept again. He emphasizes timing. Too early, and the enemy adjusts. Too late, and you take fire. The window is narrow, maybe 2 seconds. You have to read the enemy's commitment. Once he is locked into the dive, he cannot easily maneuver. That is when you position yourself. Nose to nose. The enemy will break. Self-preservation overrides aggression. One pilot asks about the risk of collision. Macksey admits it exists, but he argues the risk is manageable. Both aircraft are approaching head-on. Both pilots can see each other. Both have time to react if something goes wrong. It is not like a blindside collision in a dogfight. It is deliberate. Calculated. Another pilot asks what happens if the German does not break. Macksey pauses. He says, "You fire." At that range, with 6 .50 caliber guns, you will hit. And if you are going to collide anyway, you might as well take the enemy with you. The tent goes quiet. No one argues. Over the next 3 weeks, 5 more pilots attempt the maneuver. 4 succeed. One misjudges the timing and takes cannon fire through his left wing. He limps home and survives, but the wing requires replacement. Colonel Kern hears about the trend. He does not formally endorse it. He does not issue new doctrine, but he does not stop it either. He tells Major Polk to monitor the results. Polk begins tracking statistics. In missions where escorts use the head-on positioning, bomber losses decrease by 11%. The numbers are preliminary, the sample size is small, but the trend is undeniable. Kern requests a tactical analysis from 8th Air Force Headquarters. Intelligence officers review after-action reports. They interview pilots. They study gun camera footage when available. Their conclusion is cautious. The maneuver works under specific conditions. It disrupts enemy attack runs. It forces German pilots to abort or reposition. But it requires precise timing and strong nerves. It cannot be taught to every pilot. It is a tool, not a doctrine. The war in Europe ends in May 1945. Macksey survives. He flies 63 combat missions total. He is credited with 2 confirmed kills and 4 probables. His official record is unremarkable. He receives no medals beyond the standard campaign ribbons. He is promoted to captain in March, a routine advancement based on time in service. When the squadron demobilizes, Macksey returns to the United States. He settles in Vermont. He does not return to teaching. Instead, he takes a job with an engineering firm in Burlington. He designs bridges and surveys roads. He marries in 1947. He raises 2 children. He does not talk about the war unless asked, and even then, his answers are brief. The tactic he demonstrated does not die, it spreads. Through informal channels, pilots rotate to new squadrons and carry the knowledge with them. Flight instructors mention it during advanced training, not as official doctrine, but as an option, a tool for desperate situations. By 1946, the Army Air Forces becomes the United States Air Force. Tactical manuals are revised. New sections on defensive positioning appear. The language is careful. It does not explicitly describe Macksey's maneuver, but the principles are there. Disruption through positioning. The value of forcing an enemy to react. The psychological component of collision avoidance. Post-war analysis of Luftwaffe operations reveals interesting patterns. Captured German pilots mention American escorts that behaved unpredictably. Fighters that flew aggressively into attack vectors. It created hesitation. In aerial combat, hesitation is fatal. The Germans began approaching bomber formations with more caution. They extended their attack angles. They aborted runs more frequently. These adjustments, however small, saved lives. Statistical reviews conducted in 1947 show that bomber loss rates declined in the final months of the war. Multiple factors contributed: improved fighter coverage, long-range P-51 Mustangs, attrition of experienced Luftwaffe pilots. But tactical innovations also played a role. Small changes in how escorts positioned themselves, incremental improvements in reaction times, the willingness to accept risk in order to disrupt enemy attacks. These elements combined to shift the balance, not dramatically, not overnight, but measurably. Macksey never claims credit. He never writes about his experience. When a military historian contacts him in 1968, requesting an interview for a book on fighter tactics, Macksey declines. He says he was one pilot among thousands. He followed orders. He did his job, nothing more. He dies in 1991 at the age of 72. His obituary in the Burlington Free Press mentions his military service in one sentence: veteran of World War II, flew with the 8th Air Force, survived. His name does not appear in aviation history books. There are no plaques, no statues. But in fighter pilot training schools, instructors still teach energy management. They still discuss the value of positioning over firepower. They still emphasize that sometimes survival requires flying toward the threat, not away from it. The language has evolved, the terminology has changed, but the principle endures. One man, one moment, one calculated risk. The geometry of survival written in contrails and courage. Macksey's Hellcat was scrapped after the war. His logbook is lost, but the idea remains, encoded in the doctrine, passed down through generations of pilots who never knew his name but learned his lesson.